Okay, shall we begin?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this class was supposed to be taken by Professor Manoj, but unfortunately, I think he has uh, some kind of engagement now, so probably he'll make up for this class. Okay, so yeah, so before I go into the actual topic, uh, so yesterday I lost a class because you guys didn't come online. The same thing happened the previous Tuesday also, and then in between we had many holidays. So how are we going to make up for all these classes? Yeah, Shijit, how are we going to make up for these classes?
Sir, we will have class on Thursday and Friday next week, on 18th and 19th, 3 p.m. These two classes we have missed. Rest due to holidays. We will see if we can manage. Otherwise, after that week we will have normal classes in our regular class.
So November?
18th and 19th, 3 p.m. November 18th and 19th, Thursday and Friday, 3 p.m.
3 to 4.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so coming Monday, do you have exam?
Yes, sir. We have exam on coming Monday and Tuesday both days. Till Wednesday we have exams, sir. Wednesday.
So that means coming Tuesday also you're not going to be there online on 4:15.
Yes, sir.
So okay, fine. Okay, I'll see what can be done. Okay, you said that we'll be having a class on Saturday. So what about that?
Sir, we will have it on 20th Saturday.
The
This
20th
Saturday, sir, there
Saturday.
is means next week Saturday on November 20th. Because this week Saturday there is some last date for submission of internship report, so almost many students will be busy. That's why 20th November. Timing, sir, I will inform you. Means we have our chancellor sir class on every Saturday, so before that we will have 1 hour.
Okay, and then November 20. Okay, November 22nd is a Monday, right? So Monday you don't have any more exams.
No, sir. Means usual class we will have on 22nd November and 23rd.
Okay. Okay, fine. Okay. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about the second class of light sources used in optical communication systems called as the light emitting diodes. So you might be aware of this light emitting diode with what we have discussed in our third semester. So this device works on the principle of electroluminescence, where you have a forward bias PN junction, you have a P and N region forming a PN junction. In fact, both this P and N is going to be heavily doped. So this is going to be P plus and this is going to be N plus. So you apply a forward bias, electrons and holes are getting injected inside the depletion region and you get a photon out. Now, the key difference between a light emitting diode and a laser diode is that in the case of a light emitting diode, LED, the typical line width is of the order of few tens of nanometers. So typical line width is something like 20 to 25 nanometers. So you have a broad emission range for the output photons. And if I'm plotting the light, if I'm plotting the current, if I'm plotting the drive current, so this is the current what I'm injecting inside the LED. So if I'm plotting the current as a function of light output intensity, so you are going to have a straight line like this. It's almost linear. You have some amount of non-linearity, but for the time being, let's just ignore that. So you are going to have a linear light output intensity as a function of drive current. And if I plot the IV characteristics for the LED, the IV characteristics is just like that of a normal diode. So here the voltage is shown on the y-axis, the current is on the x-axis. But if I plot voltage versus current, if I plot voltage along the x-axis and current along the y-axis, I'm going to get a curve which is very similar to that of a normal PN diode. So, so this is the key difference. The line width delta lambda is typically of the order of few tens of nanometers. So that means if you are using LEDs as a light source in optical communication systems, the dispersion is going to be larger because it's not really a monochromatic light source. However, you can use LEDs in those applications where dispersion is not that significant, or you can ignore dispersion. For example, if the distance between the transmitter and the receiver is not of the order of few hundreds of kilometers, then you can always use this, you can always use LEDs. The advantage of LED is that it's much cheaper. So compared to a laser diode, so LEDs are much cheaper. So that's the advantage. And if you look into the construction of LED, so you would see that you have a planar P region, you have a planar N region, and photons are getting emitted, and you will see that of all the photons that are getting generated inside this depletion region, not all of them can come out. So if you want to use an LED for an optical communication, in the case of an optical communication system, so you want to maximize the light output. That means for whatever electrons and holes what you are injecting inside the LED, you want to have a photon that is being emitted. So if you have 100 electrons and 100 holes, so 100 electrons and 100 holes being injected inside the LED. So these electrons and holes would recombine, and you would expect 100 photons to be emitted. You would expect 100 photons to be emitted. But what happens in reality is that of the 100 photons that are being generated inside the LED, let's say only 70% or even less than that. So only some of them, only a fraction of them is going to get emitted out, and remaining is trapped within this LED itself because of the fact that, so this reflection what you see here is actually the photon that is getting totally internally reflected. So there is always a not really a similarity, but a close resemblance between the LED and that of an optical fiber. So in the case of optical fiber, you want to maximize total internal reflection. So whatever photons that are getting, so if you, in the case of an optical fiber, if you imagine that this is clad and this is core, you would expect all the photons that are striking the cladding core interface to be reflected back. So you want 100% total internal reflection, so that the cladding modes can be minimized. Whereas in the case of an LED, you want the other way. So whatever photons are getting, whatever photons that are striking the interface, the semiconductor air interface, you want none of these photons to undergo total internal reflection. You want all of them to get emitted out. So in fact, the LEDs can be classified on two, so you can have two kinds of classification. One is the LED where the light is getting emitted vertically. You call it as the surface emitting LED. And the other kind of LED is the edge emitting LED, where the light is flowing parallel to the substrate. So if you have a surface emitting LED, so usually in the case of surface emitting LED, the output power will be less. So P out is going to be less in the case of surface emitting LED. So in the case of surface emitting LED, if you want to couple the light output from a surface emitting LED to an optical fiber, usually that's going to be a multi-mode optical fiber. So there are two ways by which you can do that. So one is by placing the optical fiber like this and then filling it with a resin. So this is a polymer. This will actually minimize the refractive index mismatch between the optical fiber and that of a semiconductor material. The other way by which you can couple light is to use what is called as a micro lens. So this micro lens is placed just above the LED. So this can couple the light, and this can, in fact, this can collect the light and can couple the light inside the optical fiber. So these are the ways by which you can couple light from a surface emitting LED to an optical fiber. Whereas if you have an edge emitting LED, then you have an optical fiber, and then you can use a special class of optical fiber, what is called as a lensed fiber. So this kind of optical fiber is called as a lensed optical fiber. It's called as a lensed optical fiber. So you have an inbuilt lens that is being fabricated at the end of an optical fiber. So this lens would collect the light and then it would launch inside this optical fiber. If you don't have an lensed fiber, the other way is by using what is called as a Grin rod lens. So this Grin stands for graded index. So it stands for graded index, GRIN. So this can also this is also a kind of lens, but in this the refractive index is gradually varying. So this can actually collect the light, and it can launch inside an optical fiber. Now the advantage of using this is that this Grin lens is that you can in fact even launch it inside a single mode optical fiber. So it can. So here you have tight focusing. So these are the various means by which you can collect light from LED and you can launch it inside an optical fiber. In fact, this one is more expensive. So this is an expensive scheme. So this, using this Grin lens, is more expensive. Okay, so if you look at the output, so we studied that you can have two classes of light sources. One is a laser and the other one is LED. So this is expensive, but this is cheap. And this has the least line width, so the smaller line width. So I would write it as, okay, smaller delta lambda, but here in this case you have a larger delta lambda. So if you want to decide between what you have to choose for an optical communication system, you should look into these two aspects. So one is the cost aspect. So one is the cost aspect. The other one is the performance aspect. Or in other words, the quality of line width and in fact the dispersion. So if you want to minimize the cost, then it's always better you use an LED. But then you'll have to pay a price for that, that is the performance. Because in the case of a light emitting diode, the output spectrum is always broad. So you'll always have intramodal dispersion. So the chromatic dispersion or the material dispersion is going to be large in the case of if you're using LED as a light source. But whatever is the case, you would see that in LED as well as in laser diode. So this red line is the curve for the laser diode, where you are varying the output current, sorry, you are varying the input current and light output power varies. But note that in both the cases, you would see that if you are able to vary the current, so this current is the input current. Input current, you can also call it as the drive current. So you can see that by simply varying the input current or the drive current, you can actually change the light output power. So simply by changing the input current, you can change the light output power. So light power is simply is nothing but the light intensity. Light intensity. You can change input current and you can change the light intensity. So in the case of light sources, it's very easy because you simply change the drive current and you can change the light intensity. So this case, so this scheme where you can change the input drive current and thereby you can simply vary the light intensity or you can modulate the light intensity. So this scheme is what is called as the direct modulation. You call it as direct modulation. Modulation, the word modulation is used because you are actually changing. This is used because you are varying or you are modulating the light intensity. You are varying the light intensity. So you can vary the light intensity simply by changing the input current or the drive current. And since you are directly changing the light intensity by changing the input current, you call this modulation scheme as the direct modulation scheme. So this is a big advantage of a laser diode and an LED. You can simply change the current and you can change the light intensity.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, in LED, can we use a DBR kind of structure to improve delta lambda?
You can, yeah, you can use that, but still the improvement will not be, how to say, the improvement will not be that significant because the purpose of using a grating structure is to make the line width as small as possible. So in the case of an LED, since you are already having a broad line width, so if you look at the output spectrum, you would see that you are having you are already having a very broad line width. So the improvement what you are going to get, so if you compare the cost benefit and the performance, so you will not have a significant advantage. Nevertheless, we have LED structures where you can use some kind of grating structure to minimize the line width. So that kind of LED is what is called as an RC LED. So this stands for resonance. So in fact, it's called as RCE LED. So this kind of LED. So this stands for resonant cavity enhanced light emitting diode. So we have studied about the design of a vertical cavity surface emitting laser, where you have this active layer. So the light is emitted in this direction, but then on the top and the bottom you have these dielectric mirrors. So you can adopt the same kind of design for an LED structure, and this can result in what is called as an RCE, resonant cavity enhanced light emitting diode. It's still possible.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so so the advantage of both LED and laser diode is that you can change the intensity. Sorry, you can change the drive current, and then you can change the light output power. So in the case of an LED, you know that light emitting diode, it works on the principle of spontaneous emission. It works on the principle of spontaneous emission. So spontaneous emission means if you have if you have an excited level and a ground level, or an excited state and a ground state. So we have studied this. So we have studied about conduction band and valence band. So this valence band, I will call this as the ground state, and this conduction band, I call it as the excited state. So imagine that you have electrons. You have electrons in the conduction band, so in the excited state. So this electron will not be able to stay in the conduction band forever. It will survive in the conduction band for a finite time duration, and that finite time duration is what is called as the lifetime. So lifetime, which is denoted by tau. So it can stay there only for a finite time duration called as a lifetime, and after this lifetime, this electron would automatically come down by itself. You don't have to do anything. This electron would automatically come down to the ground state. You call it as de-excitation, and in that process, the excess energy, that excess energy would be released as a photon. So please note that an electron in the conduction band has a higher energy compared to an electron in the valence band. So this energy difference is what is called as, you call it as the band gap energy, and this energy is, so the emitted photon is going to have this energy. So that energy is released as a photon. So if this electron comes back to the ground state by itself without any external trigger, if it comes back by itself, you call that kind of emission as spontaneous emission. And that's the dominant light emitting, that's the dominant mechanism that happens in LED. Whereas in the case of a laser diode, it works on the principle of stimulated emission. Stimulated emission, where an incoming photon, you have an external photon whose energy is exactly equal to the energy separation between this energy level and this energy level. So this photon would interact with this electron, and because of this photon, this electron comes down. So this electron comes down. So when this electron comes down, the excess energy is released as a photon. So, and this photon and the incoming photon, they have the same energy, they have the same phase, they have the same direction, they have the same polarization and everything. So that kind of emission is what is called as stimulated emission. So this is the operating principle of a laser diode. So stimulated emission versus spontaneous emission. So in the case of laser diode, in this region where the input current is actually smaller than the threshold current. So this minimum current, this current is what is called as the threshold current, ITH, the threshold current. That's the minimum current what you have to inject to a laser diode so that you have population inversion and stimulated emission. So whenever you are using a laser diode for an optical communication system, you generally operate in this region. The input current would be always greater than the threshold current. So in this region, if I vary so let's say in this region, if I vary let's say that I'm varying the threshold current, if I'm varying the drive current in a sinusoidal manner, you would say that the light output intensity would also vary. So it's also going to vary in a sinusoidal manner. So this varies in a sinusoidal manner. This also would vary in a sinusoidal manner. In fact, it should be the other way. So when I increase the current, the light intensity should increase, and when I decrease the current, the light intensity should decrease. So I would always operate in the linear region so that the distortion is the least, harmonic distortion is the least. So you might have studied about this. So whenever we modulate everything in the linear region so that you can minimize the distortion. Okay. So this scheme where you change the drive current and you change the light output intensity is what is called as the direct modulation. So in fact, you can prove this. You can use what is called as a rate equation in an LED, where the rate equation is a differential equation which relates. So this rate equation. So this rate equation is the equation that relates the change in the electron density. So there's a change in the electron density. So this equation actually relates the change in the electron density to the drive current. So change in the electron density is related to the drive current. So you know that whenever you have a current that is injected inside an LED, if you have a current that is being injected inside the LED, the number of electrons and holes also increases, or in fact it varies. So the electron density, whenever you are injecting current, so this is the number of electrons that are being injected. Current divided by the charge of the electron divided by the active volume. So this V is the volume of the LED. So this is the net. So this is the total number of electrons that are being injected. Now out of these electrons, so you place all these electrons here. So there's an electron and you also have a hole there. So you place all these electrons there. You place all those electrons there. Now this electron would try to recombine with this hole so that it emits a photon. Now there are two ways by which this electron can recombine with this hole. Now in some case, when the electron recombines with the hole, it emits a photon. You call it as a radiative recombination. And in some cases, the electron recombines with the hole, but you don't get any light. You call it as the non-radiative recombination. So you can consider the number of electrons that undergo radiative recombination, and you can also consider the electrons that undergo non-radiative recombination by incorporating the recombination lifetime and the non-radiative recombination lifetime. So you can consider that. So that difference would give you the net rate of change of electron concentration in the conduction band. Now similarly, you also have a net rate of change of photon density inside the laser cavity. Sorry, inside the LED cavity. So you would see that inside the LED. So if this is P and this is N, you would see that electrons and holes recombine. So I am considering only the radiative part. So electrons and holes recombine. It produces a photon. But this photon cannot escape outside immediately. The photon is going to survive inside this cavity for a finite duration, and that finite duration is what is called as the photon lifetime or the cavity lifetime. So that is denoted by this Tp. So this is the average time that a photon spends inside the active region. So it spends some time inside the active region, and after that it goes out. So you can consider the steady state situation where the moment the photon is being generated inside the cavity, the photon goes out. So in that case, d phi by dt becomes 0. So you can combine all these things, and then you can in fact show that the light output power. So this equation simply tells that by changing the drive current, the output power, can be changed. So this equation is nothing but, so this equation is actually we have shown these equation, sorry, we have shown these figures where in the LED you change the drive current and you can change the light output power. So this graph is mathematically shown by these two equations, where you can change the drive current, and then you can change the output power. So I'm not going to derive this equation in the class because we have already lost enough of lectures. So you can do it by yourself. Okay, so we studied about LEDs. So in fact, we studied about the transmitter. So the light source, LED or laser diode. So we are going to place it in this place. Now, the other component what we have to study in our optical communication system is actually the optical receiver. The optical receiver is placed at the receiver side. So this optical receiver is nothing but a photodetector whose job is to receive the photons, absorb the photons, and convert these photons into electrons and holes. So the photo receivers or the optical receivers, there are different classes of optical receivers, such as you can use photoconductors, PN photodiodes, PIN photodiodes, avalanche photodiodes, metal semiconductor metal photodiodes. So these are the different classes of semiconductor photodiodes. So all these photodiodes works on the principle that you have a semiconductor material. In fact, you have a direct bandgap semiconductor material. So I will just describe the operating principle. You have a direct bandgap semiconductor material. Direct bandgap semiconductor material. So this direct bandgap semiconductor material, so let's say you have a conduction band and valence band. So imagine that there is an incoming photon. There's an incoming photon whose energy is at least equal to this bandgap energy. So the energy of this photon, so E is equal to h nu, is at least equal to Eg, the bandgap energy of this material. So if that happens, if the incoming photon has an energy that is at least equal to the bandgap energy of the material, this photon will cause an electron to be promoted from valence band to conduction band. So you create an electron hole pair. So you will be having an electron here and you will be having a hole there. So I would call these carriers, I would call these electrons and holes as the photo-generated carriers. Photo-generated carriers. Okay, so I have generated, so I have received a photon. In fact, I have received the information signal, and this information signal has now produced an electron in the hole. But it's not just enough that I produce an electron in the hole. In fact, this electron in the hole should be, the external circuit should know that I have produced an electron in the hole, which means this electron in hole should flow in the form of a current. That means these electrons and hole should move through the external circuit. So how do I make sure that these electrons and holes move through an external circuit? So what I do is I apply a reverse bias. So in the case of a PN photodetector, I have an incoming photon which is being absorbed by the active region, and this creates an electron in the hole. It creates an electron in the hole, but this electron in the hole should pass through an external load resistor so that I know that there's a current that has, I can know that I have received a signal. So to ensure that these electrons and holes are flown through the external circuit, I apply a reverse bias voltage. So basically a photodetector is a reverse biased PN diode. So it's a reverse biased PN diode. It's a reverse biased PN diode. So this reverse bias would actually widen the depletion region, and therefore the built-in electric field is large. And because of that large built-in electric field, the moment the electrons and holes are formed in the depletion region, the depletion voltage or the built-in voltage would sweep these electrons and holes away from each other. So the holes would move towards the negative terminal of the battery. Electrons would move towards the positive terminal of the battery. And as a result, you would be having a resultant current that is passing through this external circuit. And I call this current as the photocurrent. So this photocurrent is the electrical equivalent of the information signal what I have received here. So if I am receiving a square pulse, if my light signal is in the form of a pulse like this, my photocurrent would also be in the form of a pulse. Ideally, would be in the form of this pulse. So this is the case of a PN photodetector. Now in the case of PN photodetector, the depletion region width is decided by the doping density of P and N region. So the light absorption usually happens in the depletion region, and whose width is decided by the doping densities of N region and P region. And in fact, usually make the P region to be very thin because the hole mobility is less. So if you want to improve the performance, if you want to improve the sensitivity of a PN photodetector, so what we do is, instead of using a PN photodetector, we use what is called as a PIN photodetector, where instead of a normal PN, instead of using a normal PN junction, you use an additional region here, what you call as the intrinsic region. You use an intrinsic region. So now the width of the depletion region is larger, so that more photons can be absorbed.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah,
your
go on.
voice was breaking.
My voice is breaking. So up to which
Yes,
part
sir,
could you
yes.
hear properly?
So the starting of PIN, from that part you need to repeat again.
Starting of PIN junction. Okay. So if you look at this, PN diode, you would see that the photon absorption happens in the depletion region, and the width of the depletion region is actually decided by the doping densities of N region and P region. So if I want to collect more light, or in other words, if I want to collect more information signal coming out of an optical fiber, I would expect a larger width for the depletion region so that I can collect all those photons. And that is possible by using what is called as a PIN diode, where you have a dedicated intrinsic region which is added in addition to the depletion region. So now the depletion region, the width of the depletion region is larger. So because of which I can collect more photons. So more photons can be collected, which means I can collect more light from the optical fiber. So that's the advantage of PIN photodiode. Now, rather than using a diode, you can also use what is called as a photoconductor. In fact, this is the most simplest photoreceiver what you can think of. A photoconductor is nothing but a piece of doped semiconductor material with an applied voltage. So when no light is falling on this material, when no photons are falling on this material, there are no electrons and holes that are being generated. But once light falls on this semiconductor material, this would create electron hole pairs, EHP. This would create EHP, electron hole pairs. So these electron hole pairs, these additional electron hole pairs, what it has created because of the light absorption, would increase the conductivity of the material. Because earlier, because it's a doped semiconductor material, the number of electron number would be N naught and the number of hole number would be P naught. But once light is being absorbed, it creates electron hole pairs, which means N0 would now become N0 plus delta N, and P0 would now become P0 plus delta P. So this delta N and delta P is called as the excess carriers what you generate. So please go back to the slides what we discussed in third semester. So N0 would become N0 plus delta N, and P0 would become P0 plus delta P. So because of which you would be having, so now you have larger number of current carriers. Since current carriers are larger, the conductivity of this material also would be larger. That means you would now have an increased current flowing through that. So by noting the change in the increased current, you can actually decide what is the information what you have received. So this kind of photo detectors are called as photoconductors. All right. So in all the, so whether it is PIN diode or a PN diode, you would see that these devices are always reverse biased. So ideally, let's assume that I am sending a 0. So I'm sending information in the form of ones and zeros. I'm sending information in the form of ones and zeros. So let us assume that I'm sending a 0. That means there is no light. There are no photons. 0 means absence of light. So ideally, what should be the current that I should be receiving? What should be the photocurrent what I should be receiving?
0.
Yeah, ideally I should be getting 0 photocurrent. But in practice, you would see that this PIN diode, this is actually a reverse bias PIN diode or a reverse bias PN diode. So in a reverse bias PN diode, you would see that even though ideally you expect no current to pass through, but in reality, you would see that there is a very small current that is passing through this circuit, and that current is nothing but the reverse saturation current. So even when no light is falling on the diode, on the PIN diode or a PN diode, you would see that there is still some current that is passing through the external circuit. That is actually a noise, and that current is what is called as the dark current. I would call it as the dark current. So this is a noise. Dark current because when it is dark, when no photons are falling on it, it still produces a current. So this current is nothing but the reverse saturation current, what you observe in the case of a reverse bias PN junction. So this dark current is a noise and it's a big threat to the photo receivers. Okay, I'll stop here. We'll continue about noise in photo receivers and also optical amplifiers in our next class. Okay, so when is our next class?
The 17th Wednesday means if Manoj sir is not taking, then you can take, otherwise 18th and 19th.
Okay, fine. All right then. So thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, regarding quiz 2, sir, the paper was quite lengthy, sir. Means because both the faculties, means you and Vani ma'am have created the paper, means students believe that the paper was lengthy because the portions from both the courses were too much.
So?
I mean, sir, we cannot do that much amount of paper in 1 hour, sir. Sir, at least 15 minutes were more there, then we would be able to do the paper. Means like.
So what were the questions what I asked?
You asked about laser.
Yeah, so I don't think the time was insufficient. Okay, anyway, I'll see what you have written.